Alright, so today I'll be talking about the Romantic Period, part two. So I'll start off with number one, which says, discuss the first pianos ever made. So the first like actual piano that was like with the keys, with the strings and everything like that, was made in the 1700s. But before that, it started off with just a wooden box, and then they started adding key components, like the strings and then the keys. And then I think in 1521 they invented the harpsichord, which is kind of like the piano, but doesn't have that many keys, and there's not that many ranges. So yeah, that was the big thing with pianos, and that was the also evolutionary. They started from a wooden box and then just added key components that they needed. As you said, what demands for the instruments? So they needed keys, they needed strings, and so they just put those all together, and then they got the piano finally done in 1700 or around there. So number three says, how did the Industrial Revolution play a major role in the evolution of brass instruments? So, brass instrument, it played a really big role because they were used in churches, and also it was the Industrial Revolution opened a new kind of place for middle class people. And when Beethoven first started, that's when he kind of first started making his music. Um, that was like kind of the beginning of Beethoven. He had larger like musical works, which was like he had more musical, what do you call it? Like more bigger pieces that had to include more instruments such as timpani, or like the snare and stuff like that. So that did play a major role in brass, because it kind of opened that opportunity up for brass musicians to what do you call it? Be in there. So number four says, how did Industrial Revolution play a major role in the evolution of woodwind instruments? Okay, so for the woodwind, for the woodwinds, they were first kind of just like a what do you call it? It was kind of like I'm trying to figure out that word. Things that we play in fourth grade, like a clarinet. No, it's not a clarinet. It's like one of those. I don't know how to explain it. I forgot what that word is called, but it's like a flute. No, it's not called a flute. What is that called? A harmonica? I have no idea. Anyways, so it started off with that, and it started off with actual wood, and then it started off going into different uh, uh, in like making keys, and then having the different sharps and flat. So yeah, that's how they were what do you call it? First started with the piccolo, and then they added the flute, oboe, and then the clarinet, and then the bass clarinet, bassoon, and then what was that one thing? Contrabassoon. But yeah. So the next question says, okay, yeah. So how did the Industrial Revolution play a major role in the evolution of percussion? So as I said before, Beethoven, the beginning of Beethoven, he had a lot of what do you call it? More works, so it gave more opportunity to those parts that weren't necessarily needed as much. But now that he had bigger and more pieces that he could write that were more sprawled out differently, and So that's what gave them their like how they evolved and stuff. So number 6 says, why did an ensemble start using conductors during this time? So they used ensembles started using conductors because when you're with a group, especially if you're like in a big group, it's really hard to keep the rhythm and the time, because you're looking at your music and there's not like one person that you should be looking at. I mean, it should be probably the first violinist if anything, but you kind of just don't really know, because if the first violinist is offbeat, then it's bad. But basically they started it because the conductor can keep the beat and he can keep it on track. So that's why, like, if you ever get lost, you just look at the conductor and then kind of just feel for the rhythm and then get back into it. So number 7 says, how is a romantic symphony different from the classical symphony? I would say that the romantic is different because it's more emotional than classical, which is more just listening and stuff like that. Romantic kind of gets to the heart and it's more emotional because it makes you have feelings, compared to classical music that could still give you emotions, but it's not really about that. You know what I mean? It's more about just, I feel like when you listen to classical music, some of it could be dark, some of it could be happy, but it's not really a one set tone emotion. You know what I mean? I feel like romantic can be the same, but it's always about one thing, which is love. So it's like, number 8 says, what was the first movement of the Brahms Fourth Symphony? Demonstrate. So it just talked about the first movement, how it's really goes into a dark kind of thing, makes it feel really powerful in the beginning of the video. So yeah, number 9 says, how did growing in the middle class during the Industrial Revolution allow proliferation of parlor music and salon music? What is the difference between parlor and salon music? So parlor, and I was trying to search this up, but I don't know if this is right, but it says parlor was kind of like a hair barber, and so was salon, but it was like parlor was for more than men, like a barber for men, and salon was probably more for women. So maybe they played their instruments there, and probably that's what gave them, I don't know, more gigs and stuff. That's the only thing I could make up with that question. It's kind of confusing, but anyways, number 10 says, what was Chopin's compositional and playing style referred to very romantic in the video? It was referred to very romantic because he had a certain kind of style that was played very his music was very subtle and had a lot of emotion, and you could hear it when you would listen to his pieces, and that's why they refer to it as very romantic, because the romantic era is all about emotional and love. Number 11 says, which two notable characteristics achieved rock star fame? Wait, what does that say? Can't read that. Which two notable characters achieved rock star fame during the romantic era? So I would say that there's a lot of opera composers, such as Elijah, which was an opera composer. But I would say him and Beethoven for sure, because they were two of the ones that just kind of started in the Industrial Revolution. They went from classical to romantic, especially with Beethoven. Many romantic composers tried to imitate him, but Beethoven was so different from everybody else. So yeah. What does virotistic? Okay, so virotistic is basically like very technical and like very technique, like you have a really good technique, and then virtuoso means that you're highly skilled, that you really are good at what you do. So yeah, that ends my 10-minute video. Thank you for watching.